Welcome, my friends, to episode 12 of The Blind Exorcist. And you guessed it, it's me, Justin D., your host. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Before I share what today's about, just a quick reminder. Make sure to join, subscribe, share out, get this out to family and friends so they also can enjoy the content. Even if they're not Christian, hand it out to your friends. They don't have to be Christian to listen to TBE. A lot of the people who listen to the podcast aren't even Christian. How cool is that? Welcome, everyone. Everyone's welcome, man. So anyhow, today, for episode 12, recently I was interviewed on a video podcast named Captainese. Now, this young woman contacted me on the internet through my website and wanted to interview me, and this is interesting, on the topic of multiple personality disorder. I will post a link to the YouTube version of this, but unfortunately, she sped up my voice to fit her 50-minute time frame for her video podcast. So I sound like a chipmunk. So I said, man, this content is so rich, awesome. People are going to be fascinated by it. I just wanted to put it out here for y'all to hear. This has been recorded on Zoom. The audio is good, but it's not going to be at the quality you're used to hearing on here. But believe me, it is very good, okay? This young woman is not a Christian. In fact, at one point, she talks about dropping psychedelics, and we talk about that. So keep this in mind. This is someone who's not a Christian. God bless her. And it was awesome being interviewed by her. Hope you enjoy this. Are you ready?
To me, and correct me if I'm wrong, what trauma basically is the gap between the expected behavior or events and actual behavior. Because if you expect something is going to happen, no matter how bad it is, you won't be traumatized. So there has to be a lack of expectation there. And I personally see most personality disorders and mental disorders as a response to trauma.
Yes.
That also goes for multiple personality disorder, or now people call it dissociative personality disorder. Would you agree with that? Do you think does it always come from trauma?
Yes, in my experience. Now, just for the record, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I am an exorcist that's certified. So when I work with people with regards to demon possession, I have training to deal with dissociative identity disorder, because when you're working with somebody that has demons, they speak through the person. Is this the person? Is it a demon? Is it a dissociative identity? What is this speaking to me as I work with people? In the context of exorcism, I see dissociative identity disorder very frequently. And to your point, yes, it is all from trauma, unexpected trauma. A lot of times in childhood, sometimes in teenage years, things like rape, incest, molestation, kidnapping, all these sorts of things that cause this, like you're saying, unexpected trauma on a person's psyche. I was working with a client whose father, from the age of 5 till 13, would sodomize her. And this was incest. And so at 5 years old, this young girl, inside of her own mind, the unexpected behavior was sodomy, and which is a god-awful sexual act to do on an innocent child. So in this client's mind, it's happening to Sally, it's not happening to me. And so it's a survival technique. It's a gift, because if people could not split off, they mentally would crack. And so when someone is going through trauma, they say, it's happening to Jenny, it's not happening to me, or it's happening to John, it's not happening to me. So then the core person does not feel that pain. John over here feels it, or Sally over here feels that pain and takes that pain for them. So they're hiding behind the dissociative identity. As a 5-year-old child, as a 13-year-old child, as a 16-year-old teenager, they don't understand that they're doing this. It just happens for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. In a way, it's very extreme, but it's also pretty brilliant. It's almost genius. It's a superpower. And as it relates to all the other ways of compensating for your traumatic experience, and having multiple personality disorder is not that detrimental as opposed to an addiction or maybe something like that. And it's a very good shield from traumatic experiences. And I think that's what shocks me about it, is to what length our mind can really go in order to protect us from trauma. It's very surprising when I learned about the multiple personality disorder. At first, I was very skeptical about it. And I know that as a young child, I think every one of us as children, we have these multiple personalities that we like to go to because it's a fantasy play. But when there's trauma involved, those become real. And they don't really combine themselves into one personality. They remain fractured. Yes, my question is, it is my understanding that the more traumatic the event was, the more personalities you have to have, because it's a heavier burden. And for only 3 people to carry it, for example, it would be just too much. So you have to have multiple people carrying that throughout. Is it true that the more trauma you have, the more fragmented you are?
Yes, that is very true. Yeah. And so trauma does not have to be sexual in nature. Trauma can be if you're in war and you're a soldier and you had to murder and kill people, but you really did not want to do that as a person. But you were in the military, maybe because your family was in the military, so as you're murdering people, sometimes people during battle, they will disassociate. I'm not doing this. Frank is doing this.
Right.
So I just wanted to mention that because a lot of times when we talk about dissociative identity disorder, we want to focus on the extreme cases of sexual abuse, rape, trauma, and those are awful things that people go through. But there are different ways that people can disassociate. And to your point, it is a gift. And as an exorcist, it's a gift from God. That's the way that I would explain it. It's wonderful that they can protect themselves in this way, especially the children, especially the teenagers. I've worked with clients that were raped by multiple men in university and disassociated from that. It's a way of dealing with this. But what happens is, at a certain point in time with age, there is no specific age that I know, but those memories start fading into the core personality of the person. They just can't keep everything separated anymore in the mind. A client that might be 28 or 30 years old, all of a sudden starts having these memories, and she or he thinks, I'm crazy. I never experienced this. What's going on here? This is nuts that I'm seeing my father rape me, or I'm seeing an uncle abuse me, or whatever it is that they experienced, because at a certain point in time, it's too hard to keep all that managed. And I think normally that's when people start to pursue therapy because they don't understand what's going on. And also exorcism because they think I have demons. And that's how that unfolds over time, because a lot of the disassociation happens in early childhood, teenage years, young adult years.
Also, addiction, for example, is a softer version of dissociation, because in that time when you are high or drunk, you don't necessarily feel all those emotions. You can say that you are dissociating from it. And I always think I have a very interesting way of looking at addictions and even personality disorders, or any disorder, any compensation for trauma. I think, and people want to fix them and people have problems with them, and fair enough. But I think, in a way, thank God that person developed that addiction or a disorder or whatever it is, because as you said before, it's a shield. Because maybe if they wouldn't have done that, maybe they would commit suicide. And as a therapist, you shouldn't be angry towards the addiction, because they're here, they're alive, because if they're dead, it's going to be hard to work with them. So at least they're here, right? So it definitely served a purpose. Now, just to explain, you have a host, which is you. This is the main person, and then you have alters. Alters are your persona is fragmented into different personalities, which are called alters. There are known limits as to how many alters there can be, and men tend to have less alters than women. Now, there are people who are faking every single mental disorder there is, and of course, there are people who are faking this one as well. And I don't really know about it as much as you. There was an interview with a woman in Australia who had 2,300 personalities. One of them was a small child. And that small child was supposed to be a few years old, but when she entered into that, when that small child came out, she was using words like prosecution and appealing in a trial. To me, that was a dead giveaway that she was faking it, because as a child, you don't even have that in your vocabulary. So
that's correct.
Absolutely. There are people who are faking it. Do you think that these people do more harm than good? Because in a way, they are spreading awareness, but they're also spreading skepticism.
I deal with skepticism all the time because I'm an exorcist. I do deal in the supernatural realm. So yes, skepticism is across many things in life, including multiple personality disorders. When a child alter truly appears, in my experience, they talk like an infant. They talk like a child.
Absolutely.
And when I work with a dissociative identity that is a child, I have children myself. I've raised 4 children. So I interact with that child alter just like it's a child. Yeah. I've not seen what you watched with the woman from Australia.
But it sounded really, these type of people, I don't blame people for being skeptical when this is basically what they put out in the media, right? Apart from alters who are psychopaths, which are not that many, but media made it seem as if these people are dangerous somehow. There was also an interview with a woman who had multiple alters, and one of them was a gay guy. Now, mind you, she was a straight woman married to her husband, but she had one of her alters was a gay guy who had a boyfriend, and her husband was okay with that. And that raised suspicions for me, but I understand it. The other one was somebody who smoked. The other alter seemed to smoke. And I understood it, but at the same time, in my head, I was like, that's very convenient for you. You can cheat and you can
do whatever you want.
Hey, it's the alter. It's not me, it's the alter.
Right.
Yeah. But a big part of the dissociative personality disorder or multiple personality disorder is dissociative amnesia. So this is when you can't recall information about yourself or the events or of people in your life, especially from a traumatic time. Dissociative amnesia can be specific to events in a certain time, such as intense combat, or more rarely, it can involve a complete loss of a memory about yourself. A big component of the multiple personality is amnesia. After one alter comes out, how much of what he or she did or said does the host remember, so to speak?
Yeah, so if it's full dissociation, let me explain. I have a woman that I know, that I have worked with, that has multiple personality disorder. So she would go and get dressed and would be looking in the mirror, and another alter would surface and not like it, take all those clothes off, change into what she liked, and then would look in the mirror, another alter would surface and don't care for that, and take off the clothes and put different clothes on. And this pattern would repeat. And so then the host would come back and the core person and see clothes all over the place and what's going on, right? That's true disassociation. True disassociation is where you are completely cut off from the core personality. You function as a separate, complete identity. You have your own tastes, your own food likes, you have your own clothing, and so forth. So it is possible for a disassociated part of a person, if fully disassociated, to absolutely have different likes, dislikes, and so forth within that person's psyche. So when you're mentioning about somebody smoking, somebody sleeping around, I deal with disassociation again from an exorcist perspective. We're dealing with demons inside of people, and they are actually integrated into the dissociative identity. So we work with these identities one-on-one, or I should say I do, and then have to deal with the demons that are attached to those dissociative identities. Now, how I know that this can happen, meaning maybe an alter can smoke, maybe another alter thinks it's a guy. I have seen where there are alters inside of a person. The core person is wanting freed from demons, okay? But the alters within are witches. So you have somebody that is wanting freed. They are a Christian, and I'm working with them, but there are alters that have separated off through trauma that are into witchcraft. Those are diametrically opposed belief systems. And so what's my point? It can happen. It can happen. People can disassociate. I spoke with men and women. The whole disposition of that female changes. It literally is another personality I'm speaking to, just like how you and I are speaking. If someone else came and sat down in your chair and they put on your headset or whatever you're wearing, which, by the way, I'm blind. I don't know if we mentioned that, just to let people know.
Oh, yeah. By the way, audience, Justin is blind, but he does a great job of being online. He's actually way more tech savvy than me, and I can see fairly well.
Yes. And so anyhow, that's how it is. And so people might be wondering, how do I see these personalities when they surface? How, as an exorcist, do I know when a demon is speaking through someone? The whole disposition, tone of the voice, and mannerisms completely change within that person. When a child alter, like we were talking earlier, comes up in an adult, male or female, it is literally talking to me like a little child. It sounds just like a child, because that's when that split happened. If that split happened at 7 years old, that identity is going to act just like a 7-year-old child. As somebody that can't see, it's not very difficult for me to know when I'm working with somebody, when an alter's surfaced and is speaking. I was working with a young man a couple weeks ago. He's 35 years old. And instantly I knew through mannerism, through tone, through the use of language, 35-year-old person may not be saying what a 14-year-old would say. And so all of a sudden I'm talking to a 14-year-old teenager. And so I said to the client, how old are you? How old do you feel right now? 14. Okay. And so I began to interact with this 14-year-old who had suffered tremendous abuse at the house. Oh my God, just awful. And then also the horrendous amounts of rejection through high school. So this 14-year-old is verbatim repeating back to me the things that happened to this identity within this young man. It's fascinating.
But if everything that we develop is to help us cope in some way, shield the trauma or help us in other ways, what would then be the role of the demons? Actually, how do you define a demon?
Okay, good question. A demon is something you cannot see. It is supernatural. And it is something that by nature is evil. And the only thing that this entity wants to do is cause absolute harm, emotional suffering, and death within a person. So that death can be death of relationships, death of finances. The ultimate goal of most demons, these evil entities, is to have a person kill themselves. So that's pretty much how I would describe what a demon is.
Do you have any idea what's the reason behind that motive of a demon?
I have a Christian worldview perspective because I am a Christian exorcist. There are different types of exorcists, but I'm a Christian exorcist. So by nature, they oppose God who created all. He kicks them out of heaven and their nature changed from being angelic to evil because there was a separation from God because they were rebellious against God. Now, this sounds like fairy tale and fictitious things, but I can tell you when a demon manifests inside of somebody that I work with, their entire body and disposition is taken over by this evil entity. Their voice sounds very evil. It makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck when they manifest. And they are opposed to anything holy. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but the reason is it's their nature. They want to kill and they want to destroy, period. It's the way they are.
Yeah.
So
then again, good luck finding a better explanation than this, because I don't see it.
Yeah.
So is every one of us susceptible to these demons, or only people who have been traumatized and it's in a way an open wound?
It's a very good question. Everybody is susceptible to them. I myself had demons. Now, I'm a software engineer, a cloud architect for those who are in IT. I'm very analytical. I am not I'm a pessimist by nature. So I'm not one to jump into the belief that there's a supernatural realm very quickly. Okay. But I myself had demons. And it was a very severe case of demons. So I went for an exorcism myself to get rid of these. Now, the demons that I had at birth, some of it was from my ancestors, the things that they did. And some of them were in me from the things that I did in life. So demons just can't attack somebody and torture them for no reason. They have to have a legal right, a contract. Just like if you and I sat down at the table and I pulled out a piece of paper and put it down, I said, we're going to have a legal contract that if I'm on your podcast, you're going to pay me $5 million.
No, that was an evil laugh.
And so you signed a contract and I signed a contract. We have a legal agreement. In the supernatural realm, this concept is how it really truly operates. Demons, the ones who want to torment you, have to have a legal agreement to come into your mind and begin to torment you. And so what are those legal agreements? There could be many of them. For example, a lot of the clients that I work with, they take psychedelic drugs. So they drop acid. And when you do that, you open your mind up to the supernatural. It's like a big open door that is open. And of course, we know people who have went on trips and have seen very evil things. They have seen demons. They have seen very bad things. I don't know about, in America, we call it a bad trip. And so that is an example of creating a legal right. So when somebody's sitting across from me as a client and I know that they have dropped acid, we need to work through that. And when the demon, it's called manifests, meaning takes over their body, their eyes dilate completely black. They have no white. You're looking into the eyes of evil. No question asked.
I myself have taken psychedelics before and I had a bad trip and it was pretty terrible. And I was alone. And most of the times when there is a bad trip, the person is alone, which is interesting. And it makes sense with what you just said. Do you think, and I personally believe that is the biggest risk of psychedelics, the bad trip, because I've opened my mind to everything multiple times. I like taking psychedelics. I'm just going to say it. I don't take them a lot, but when I do take them, it's always an experience.
Right.
Do you have a multiple personality disorder?
Myself personally?
Yes.
No, I do not.
What is the difference between having a multiple personality disorder and having demons in you that take over every now and then?
Demons are designed to kill you.
I see.
Yeah. Dissociative identities are designed to help you survive.
Okay. But in the dissociative identity disorder, there can also be alters who do try to harm you. Are those
yes?
What purpose do these alters serve? Or are they trying to harm the host or the other alter?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you waking up feeling overwhelmed by depression, anxiety, loneliness, anger, or addiction? Despite your efforts with self-help programs, books, spiritual practices, or counseling, do you feel like nothing has brought lasting relief? If this sounds familiar, I want to offer you a different approach. Exorcism is often overlooked, but can be a vital part of finding true healing. It's not like what you see in movies. It's a compassionate process aimed at addressing deep-rooted issues that might be causing your suffering. Demons can contribute to our struggles, and I'm here to help you confront and overcome them through the compassion of Jesus Christ. Visit my website at justind.com and take the first step towards a brighter future. Book an appointment today, and together, let's start your healing journey. It depends. It's like this. We all know people who cut for pain.
Yes.
Right? So people have pain and they cut to release that pain. Okay? So the core personality is not a cutter. And the core personality may handle pain differently. Okay? But an alter can be a cutter. So they're cutting the core personality. The core is not really aware of it. So the alter feels the pain of the trauma that it's experienced, and it could be a cutter. So it'll cut, and then the core personality will come back and see that there's cut marks on their arms, their forearms, and are quite confused by it. So a lot of times that's when they'll go and start therapy. Yeah.
Can these people with this disorder control when an alter comes out? Let's say if an alter wants to come out, can they push them back down, or does it take too much energy, or is it just impossible to do it?
They just switch. They just switch. Like, boom.
How often does that happen? Like on average?
I can't give statistics on that, but I know of one woman that she is married. So her husband and her daughter, she has a teenage daughter that understands and are in therapy for the disassociation that she has. But she'll switch 15, 20 times a day.
How does someone like that live? Because I assume these people want to have jobs, they want to drive, they want to do things that other people do. How is that possible? How do they cope?
It's very strenuous on them.
And actually, I have one question. If, let's say it's a host and they're on a road, is it possible that the child alter comes out, or will it automatically, automatically be changed or switched to the other alter that is an adult in order to protect themselves?
No, I understand what you're saying. I've never experienced that. That's a phenomenal question. I don't have an answer for that one. Okay. So if a child alter comes out while she's driving, do they just wreck into a tree and die?
Right.
You know, Or does a protective mechanism come up where another alter comes out and drives?
And also, does that protective alter comes out quick enough?
The switches are almost instant. As quick as you can blink your eyes, how quick a person can switch. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's very quick. And
right,
it's always
it would be inconvenient, to say the least.
Absolutely. But I know that there are people that have dissociative identity disorder. They work, they drive, and sometimes there is a personality within them that will do the work, and sometimes it is the core person that does the work. Just because someone's dissociative doesn't mean that they can't work or have a normal job. They can. That core person can work.
Sure. And so can the alters, and the alters
That's right.
be more capable than the host.
Yes. So a woman that I knew in her mid-40s, she would switch. This is amazing. She switched into a 21-year-old alter. Now she's 40.
Mm-hmm.
So this 21-year-old alter dressed her, makeup and everything. She looked literally, she was 21 years old. And she went to work, the alter, the 21-year-old went to work, and they didn't know who it was.
Wow.
The change was that drastic that they did not know who it was.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What was the highest number of alter you came across in your work?
1,000. A little more than 1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so these need mapped out, they need networked, and to understand the relationship between them, all the traumas. It's a very involved process. Now, again, I'm not a therapist, but I have to be trained on this as an exorcist so that I can know what is a demon, what is a dissociative identity, and what is the core of a person. So you begin to map these out, and the identities will help you as well. You have to earn, you have to
Sure,
earn
go ahead.
trust. Yeah, I was going to say, you have to earn the trust. Someone could have, as an example, 25 alters. And for them to come out, you have to build trust with them. And so that happens over time. And there's always a protector alter, always a protector. They're the ones that are to protect that core person no matter what. They're very tough. They're brutal. Doesn't matter if it's male or female, that alter is tough. And it's the protector. You're not going to harm this person.
It's a very common pattern to have one who is a protective and then one alter who is a child, because that's usually that's when the abuse happened.
Yes.
But now, not to give anyone any ideas, but isn't it easier for someone who is dealing with a person who has the multiple personality disorder, or their friend or an associate, and has an amnesia after a certain alter came out? Wouldn't it be easier to either sexually or otherwise abuse that person, and the only one and the only one who would remember it would be the alter?
Yes, that's correct. And sometimes alters want that abuse because it's like the phenomena of falling in love with your abuser. I don't know if you've heard of that.
The Stockholm Syndrome.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, because
I'm giving you a lot to think about.
as a therapist, I would imagine if I had evil intentions, if I had a predatory personality, which I do, but let's say I was a therapist and I had someone who has multiple personality disorders, I would be like, if I was someone, I would be motivated. It would be a good opportunity to abuse a person and they don't remember it.
Yes. And that's very sad. And
that is sad.
I mean, that happens with people in therapy. I can't say often, but it does happen. And not even sometimes in the context of disassociation. Sometimes it's just people are so hurting that a predator therapist can take advantage of that. And it's evil. It's just awful.
Yeah, especially if it's a child alter. Although they are already adapted enough that I assume if you started to abuse the child alter, the protector would come out, right?
Yes.
Okay, so alters come out conveniently.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes randomly. That's what makes it so tricky is when you're in a dangerous situation or perceived danger, then yes, that protector alter is going to come out. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just a switch back to the woman I was talking to that the alters kept trying on different clothes. It just, as quick as you can blink your eye, is as quick as someone can switch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you treat these people? Where do you even start?
Definitely therapy. You have to find a therapist that specializes in dissociative identity disorder so that they can begin to really heal. And essentially what happens is those alters basically get integrated back into the core personality. And that core personality then has to feel the pain, remember the trauma, and then that core personality has to process through that in therapy.
So if the personality disorder is an anesthetic in a way, you're essentially taking the numbing away, and now they have to feel the real pain that was there all along, but they were just shielding it with personalities.
Right. And with age, that shield starts to fragment, starts to fall apart, and the memories start coming into the core personality because as you age, you just can't keep it all separate anymore. It's too difficult. And so that's when people start, going into therapy. As an exorcist, I work with therapists. I'm not a therapist. I'm going to get rid of the demons attached to those multiple personalities, to the identities. And then therapists will work with integrating them back into the core.
So in that way, it's really rare to have someone with dissociative personality disorder who's, let's say, 80, right?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Now, I did hear a therapist tell me one time, and this was interesting. He didn't have any factual proof. It was his theory. Not everybody can disassociate under trauma. This was his theory. And I can agree with that. I don't think everybody has that gift, the ability, the intellect to do that.
Yeah.
We don't know. So his theory was that when people cannot disassociate under trauma, it's like they're trying to, but they can't. That it turns into borderline personality disorder, which is another
totally makes sense. Yeah,
another mental diagnosis. If you know anybody who has borderline personality disorder, and you keep that in the back of your mind when you meet with them, it makes sense. Again, this isn't factual. This was his theory that they were trying to disassociate, they could not. And so then they developed borderline personality disorder.
If they were more successful, they would then have a narcissistic personality disorder, isn't it? It's almost as if the person with the borderline personality disorder is a failed narcissist. and there is dissociation with all these disorders, both the borderline and narcissism.
It can be, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
it's complex. It's complex enough without bringing in demons and exorcism, because that's its own level of complexity as well. So because I'm a software engineer, because I went through my own exorcism, I'm not disassociative, but I did have demons. I have the analysis to work with people. So it's awesome to be able to compassionately work with people and let them know you're not crazy. I get you.
How does it feel when you are possessed by a demon? I know that's a weird question, but is there any way to explain it? How would you explain it?
Absolutely. There's different degrees, just like anything in life. There's different degrees. Sometimes it is panic attacks. Okay. Sometimes it is depression. Sometimes, keywords, sometimes it's suicidal thoughts. These are being induced, put in the minds of people from demons. Not all the time, but sometimes. For example, a client might be in therapy. I'm working with a guy now. He's been in therapy for over 2 years. He's medicated, but nothing's going away. He still has the suicidal thoughts. He still has. So he contacted me and he said, I think I may have demons. And he did.
Yeah.
And the demons were removed and he no longer has suicidal thoughts. Now, I'm not saying every single person that has suicidal thoughts has demons. I'm just saying, or depression or anxiety or panic attacks. I'm not saying every person that has demons. Absolutely not. Those could be authentic, true psychological issues. But that you asked, what's one way of knowing? That's one way that people can tell. They've tried all the medicine, they've tried all the counseling, nothing gets better. So that could be one way. And let me give you another one real quick, is people experience supernatural paranormal phenomena in their life. And for example, they have a being, which I will say a demon, appear at the end of their bed. And they're paralyzed. They can't move. This is very common. Or they have something touch them sexually in the middle of the night. They're in the bed by themselves, and they know it was something that wasn't really a human, but they've been touched sexually. I've had clients tell me that they have been raped by demons. And so that's the extreme cases. A client would wake up levitated to the ceiling. They got demons. And so that's an extreme case of how you would know that you have voices in your mind. For example, a young woman I was working with recently, she would stand in front of the mirror and she would have her clothes off and she would hear, "You're fat, you're ugly, no one will ever love you, you're worthless, kill yourself." Somebody's telling her that, speaking to her. It's not her own thoughts. It's something saying this to her. And so she had demons. Does that help?
That does help, and it explains a lot. And back to, I was about to ask something, but I totally forgot because I was so into what you were saying.
Yeah, but those are some examples. Uncontrollable compulsions. Demons love, one of their main characteristics is compulsion and instability. Yes, this can be caused from trauma, absolutely. But demons enter through trauma and they magnify it 100 times. So someone might go through, say, a molestation, and so they escape through smoking marijuana, right? But a demon will enter through that trauma, and instead of just smoking marijuana, now they're shooting up heroin. Now they're sleeping around with 200-300 different people, a reckless life. And what's causing that? Yes, there is some psychological aspects causing that, but the death component, the recklessness, the trying to kill themselves through heroin, the recklessness of sleeping around with 200-300 people, not even caring if they get sexual diseases, this sort of, that is where you need to pause and say, is this a demon?
Yeah.
And many times it is.
Going past the anesthesia for the trauma and just going all the way.
Yes.
In a way, when it comes to, I'm going to give an example of addiction again, or let's say an addiction.
Sure.
If I'm also almost jealous of what these people are experiencing in their high, so to speak, because when you smoke weed or you drink, you're in that high where everything is so unimportant and you feel great. Or for example, when you're shooting up heroin and you have your high, those are the highs that I, as a sober person, will never experience. I'm jealous of someone being able to push their problems away for half an hour or 3 hours. I'm really jealous of that. Now, I'm not jealous of their life as a whole or what comes after that, but that is something that is it's a superpower for that period of time. And it's something to be jealous of, basically. I had sleep paralysis, and to me, it really helped when the first time it was terrifying. The second time also, the third time, I was thinking to myself, gosh, not again. And I was bored in a way. It's really hard to explain, but I was bored with what was happening. And I had some hallucinations. And to myself, I started laughing. Really, again, that's what you're going to do again? This is so boring. And that's how it stopped.
The
From
thing
that
is,
point on, it stopped.
sure. Now, is it gone though? Stopping and being gone are two different things.
Yeah, I haven't had it since.
Yeah. But the thing that you were explaining was that you knew this was something doing this to you. And you were along the your thought process was, is this all you have?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So
exactly.
this is what I'm saying. People experience these sorts of paranormal phenomena in their lives, and they either tolerate it or reach out for help. So I would just say for anyone listening, if you are experiencing things like this and you've tried everything you can try to shift whatever it is in your life that's going on that's causing this type of torment, emotional difficulty in your life, contact me. We can see if this is demon induced. By the way, just to mention real quick, I have a podcast you guys can listen to called The Blind Exorcist, and you can listen to that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcast app is, where I actually interview people who have been through an exorcism. And it's raw and it's real. It's extremely informative. Hollywood makes exorcism out to be this absolutely terrifying, horrifying, supernatural thing that don't touch it, but it's really not. And so it's an injustice the way I understand why Hollywood does that, to make money, to sell tickets, because horror films sell, right? I get that. But it puts a fear in people of working with an exorcist, but it's actually a very gentle process. So I would encourage you guys to listen to the Blind Exorcist podcast and listen to these people's stories. And I do talk with some of the people on association on there as well.
And you probably get people who look you up as their last resort because of all the skepticism and almost not believing that this is actually happening to them. I think they would rather see everyone before you, and you are one who, you're the one.
I'm the bottom of the pot.
You are the bottom of the pot, and people are like, okay, I tried everything. What the hell? I'm going to go to this guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that's a lot of the people. Yeah, but not all. Some just flat out know I have demons. They know it. They just know I have demons. I got to get rid of them. And so they'll contact me. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of clients that I work with because I do intake questions on each client. I use analysis to evaluate entry points of demons in people's lives. And so a lot of the clients in their intake questions and responses and stuff just will flat out tell me, I know I have demons. They harass me, they torment me, they choke me in the middle of the night, they touch me sexually, they tell me to kill myself. They know this legitimately is real. And
how many of these people are actually dangerous to other people around them?
The people that I work with, none. They have none of them that I have worked with have been dangerous. There was one guy that I worked with that I had him not stay home with his wife and children because I knew the types of demons that he had could be violent. So I had him go somewhere by himself where I could work with him. Okay, so it does happen. Demons are very violent. They can be. I've seen where there's a 5-foot tall woman, which, what would that be? I'm not good at converting, but anyways, to centimeters.
I can imagine. Not a very tall woman, let's put it that way.
Yeah, a very short woman, very super thin, and 5 men, like bodybuilder men, could barely restrain her. So they can be very violent. It just depends on the type of demon that is in the person.
And it's amazing, the body-mind connection. There was a case of a mother whose child was under the car. She lifted the whole car up. So our minds are capable. And the way they influence our bodies it's amazing. I even wouldn't be surprised if somebody had an alter who had diabetes and they actually got diabetes. Like I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be.
And that's a good point. I could foresee that happening. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Do
Absolutely.
you think an alter can actually be someone who's blind as well? I'm not saying that because you're blind, but I just got
No,
the
yeah,
idea.
absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. My mentor who trained me, the exorcist that trained me, his name is Dr. Bob Larson. He has performed over 50,000 exorcisms worldwide in over 100 countries. People fly to this man in Scottsdale, Arizona from around the world. So he has all these people from around the world to fly in. He works with dissociative identity all the time, and he has witnessed an alter who was blind. Now, here's one that'll blow your mind. I had a demon. When I say manifest, what manifest means is it takes over the person's body, it takes over your voice, your eyes, your face will contort into its disposition. And so that's what's meant by manifest. This thing comes inside of the person and is fully present. Okay. And this is, you can hear this story in my podcast. My episode is called Overcoming the Darkness. It's all about my demon possession. It's about my exorcism, how I trained to become a certified exorcist, all that kind of stuff. But 2 times in my life, one time I had a friend over that was trying to help me get rid of a demon, and it manifested and it looked at my friend through my eyes and said to my friend, "What a pretty pink shirt." Well, my friend had a pink shirt on. I had no clue what he was wearing. I'm blind. He just came in. We were in my basement. I was young. This is when I was probably 22. And I knew I had demons, but I couldn't find anyone to help me back then. And so my friend said, "I'll try to help you. I just came back from Hong Kong, and I seen a bunch of people that had demons, get rid of them. This guy was helping them. I'll try to help you." I said, "Okay." He was trying to lead me through certain prayers, and this demon manifested, became fully present. I was unconscious. I did not know this happened. Almost like if an altar would switch. I had no clue. And it looked at him and could see crystal clear out my eyes. Nice pink shirt, nice pretty pink shirt. And my friend said the hair stood up on the back of his neck. He was terrified. Okay, that was one scenario. A second scenario was the exorcist who mentored me, Dr. Bob Larson. He was holding this up.
Across.
And I'm blind, and there was a demon that he was working with in me to get rid of it. And when he held that cross up, the demon inside could see through my eyes and said, "Get that out of my face now. Get it out of my face. Remove that from me." Fascinating.
It's fascinating that there is a huge component of religion there, Christianity in your case. That's very fascinating. So when you're doing your job of trying to remove these demons, you basically use prayer. Like that's the fundamental treatment of yours.
Yes, essentially it is prayers. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my possession was very severe. I did not find Dr. Larson until I was 40. I'm 51. And so I suffered for years. And I finally found somebody that could help me. And it took 14 months of working with him because my possession was so severe. You can listen to my interview with Dr. Bob Larson. I'm on YouTube. You can search for The Blind Exorcist. It's just the audio podcast I put up for people because a lot of people are like, "I just want to listen to it on YouTube, put it up." So I do. But on there's an actual video interview of me and Dr. Larson, and you can hear. He said I was in his top 5 to 10% of worst demon possession cases that he's worked with.
Well done. You made it to the top. Hey.
Yay, I didn't want to be on the top, though.
Also, in psychedelic trips, there seems to be a component of religion. A lot of people who are atheists before all of a sudden become religious after they have a psychedelic trip. So I assume you wouldn't necessarily recommend people with multiple personality disorder to take psychedelics at all.
No, I would recommend nobody to take them, just because it opens you up to the potential of demons. Because when you relinquish control of your mind, you're giving that control to somebody.
Yeah.
So when you relinquish the control of your mind, you're giving that control up to somebody. And oftentimes demons enter a people through that. Yeah.
I mean, it can be heaven or hell. You are opening the door. You don't know what's behind it. It can be your healing. It can be something worse than it was before. I've heard of people kicking their addictions after a few psychedelic trips. But then I also know someone who saw himself die during a psychedelic trip, and he's been more depressed ever since. So it's a really interesting phenomenon. I do take them quite a lot. I'm not going to lie. I have shrooms. Actually, I have shrooms right here. I don't know. I'm just saying.
If you ever need an exorcism, you know who to find.
Well, see, now I have connections. I'm connected. I can take
there
shrooms.
You go.
Oh, come demons. Anyway, so besides your YouTube and your podcast, where can people find you?
My website, it's simple. It's justind.com, www.justind.com. And you can pull that up and read. You can listen to the podcast on the website too, but most people grab it on their phones, listen when they're working out, jogging, going to work, that type of stuff.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Yeah, there's always skeptics, so you're going to get a part from those.
Absolutely.
Look, there's people out there who don't believe Holocaust happened. We have a lot of skeptics out there, right?
Absolutely.
Actually, I know someone who believes. Anyway, so thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, have a nice afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. If you're facing torment, fear, or something you can't explain, you're not alone. I've walked with many people through deliverance, and I've seen Jesus bring real freedom. If you're ready to take that first step, go to justnd.com and book an appointment with me. I'd be honored to walk with you on your healing journey.